you have this brand all around mental health, and you've created mental health content on TikTok, on YouTube. I think it's very rare that people just do that if they haven't struggled with mental health. Did you ever go through a really bad period?
Yeah, I would say it's crazy because when I first started on TikTok, I was in a really tough place because I'd not had a creative outlet in a while.
Yeah.
And something I struggled with a lot. I remember having like my first breakdown in high school. Like, it was bad. Like junior year of high school, like crying on the bathroom floor. Like it was really bad where I just felt the pressure of the world on me. It's hard because I think you block out a lot of things back then. I would never say I was like extremely depressed or anything. But I went towards people like Miles Carter, Montel Fish, people that did spoken word videos as a place of comfort. And I just wanted to provide that for other people. I remember even like during Montana, like I had a really bad spurt in my own mental health because I felt like I was floating through life. Wasn't really grounded to anything. It's a concept we talked about a lot.
Yeah.
And I wrote a note that was like really hard, and I keep it on my notes. It's actually pinned.
Yeah.
Just for myself to see that things do get better. And I wrote it when I was in kind of like the hardest point of my life so far. And yeah, I think, you know, everyone kind of goes through certain things and goes through life. And I've always had this idea that, especially when I was struggling with my own mental health, like even though we're very vulnerable with our mental health now, it's still like not a full picture of exactly how much we actually do struggle. I think typically people do struggle a lot, and that's just generally us like trying to navigate life. But I'd say, yeah, definitely those early days, the hardships I went through contributed to like the reason why I wanted to start going down that path.
So I know you're probably not done with mental health problems. I'm sure they'll probably come in and out of life. But is there any like core concepts you learned that are things that help you get out of it?
Yeah, I mean, so this is interesting because so for a while my content was like, you know, videos for positive, like just to like push people towards thinking a little positive, having a positive impact on them. And for a while I would talk about topics like anxiety or depression, but that wasn't great for me because when you make a video about depression, you like put on sad music, you like get yourself in a depressed mindset. Like that's not the greatest thing. And so that wasn't sustainable. When I realized a lot of mental health content, it kind of ends up being like a cycle where people kind of go into it and maybe like you, at the end of the day, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
And kind of what got me out of my slumps mentally was two things: going to the gym and getting outdoors in nature. I fell in love with, you know, camping, seeing nature, seeing the world, and disconnecting. Those are two things that I know for a fact will help anyone, no matter who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's why I started to shift my content. Instead of talking about these topics directly, why don't I just show people like how I'm living through life and the things that are helping me through telling these stories. And so now I love like focusing on brands like Sunny Day and whatnot because they convince people to, you know, go outside and take a break and disconnect, which I believe in turn will enhance like the mental health of our generation. And so it's almost like showing people things that have helped me because, you know, I'm not a therapist. I can't speak on a lot of these topics, but I can show people my own experience. And I think that's led to me having a, you know, getting in a better place is those things like going to the gym, nature, and definitely community as well.
That's really interesting because my favorite genre of music is sad love music. And I started listening to music in high school, and actually, much like you, my junior year of high school, I was a very depressed kid. I put a lot of happiness in females, so like, if I liked a girl and she didn't like me back, I was like, oh, I'm sad. But and you mentioned too about how mental health has become a more talked about topic.
Yep.
And part of me is like so happy about that because people feel less alone. But part of me actually doesn't know if it's useful because what I realized with my favorite genre of music, which is sad love music, is that while I love the way it sounds, I love the relatability of it. I realized that the more I listen to sad music, the more sad I feel.
Yep.
And I realized maybe it's the same way with mental health content, where it's like, if you're constantly consuming content about how to get better for mental health, it's also subconsciously telling your mind that you are who you say you are, which is a depressed person or you're a person with anxiety. Yeah. And I think even the same thing could be drawn out to medicine. And I'm not telling anyone to not take medicine or to take medicine, but when you have medicine for these drugs or for these problems, it's like a reminder sitting on your desk that like, I am who I say I am, which is a depressed person. And that's what I feel the same way as you, where like I used to want to make content where I'm like, I want to make content where the depressed version of me could relate to this, or the depressed kid out there. But now I don't. I want to make content that like looks exciting and fun and happy, so that people want that rather than want relatability.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the adage of like, I don't know, and I haven't thought about this too much as well, but like, to what extent do you acknowledge a problem by acknowledging that there is a problem? You know, how much are you creating by acknowledging that there's something missing, or maybe by the content you consume are saying that you are that type of person? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of the range where I kind of tap out, where I'm like, I'm not experienced enough to talk on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, recently I followed under the idea of like, instead of like looking up to idols or specific people as inspiration, I've looked to more emotions, and how can I be a warm ball in a room when I walk in, or how can I really make people feel great inside, or be like sunshine essentially. And I think that's part of the reason why like this week I've been so hyper and trying to like bring people together. It's like, how can I be that ball of energy that makes people feel a little bit better, and maybe that reflects in the content as well, of like, how do you just change someone's perspective by 1%, or make them feel a little bit better.
So you mentioned during your depression spout you had watched some spoken word, and I know that after a recent breakup, you started writing poetry. You almost sold a poetry book.
Yeah.
Why is poetry therapeutic, or what does poetry mean to you? I don't even know if it's therapeutic. What is it to you?
Yeah, I mean, poetry to me, it's always been interesting, because I realized I love fitting pockets of words within like music, since I did my like spoken word stuff. Like, you know, you're off by like a millisecond and it doesn't sound right in your head. It's like, crap, like I need something there to hit. And I can't explain why, but that's something I've loved. And I don't know, I think immediately after that relationship ended, I just turned immediately towards writing as my way of expression. I can't explain why, but it just kind of like happened. I started writing little bits of poetry and things like that. And poetry to me, and writing in general, is just my way of processing the world in a state that's not as out there. It feels more personal, because like when I'm doing a video, it's like out there, you know? When I'm writing, it's kind of like on my Notion page on the side. Like, you know, it feels like it belongs to me, and it's very personal. And that's why I've been taking up writing and poetry. It's kind of my home little oasis away from everything else. And that's why I've kind of fallen in love with it.
Interesting. You have a brand called Sunny Co?
Sunny Day.
Sunny Day. Oh, my bad. What is your plan with that brand?
Yeah, so Sunny Day it's a coffee company I started with one of my closest, like, basically he's like an older brother to me. He's a mentor, Brian. And we had both kind of been in the same spots in life of like leaving projects. I'd taken a break on my clothing brand, and he had taken a break from like working for other people. And he started this company called Sunny Day, named after his daughter Sunny. It was just born this past year. And the coolest thing, I think, for Sunny Day was a way for me to kind of build this brand, this ideology of getting people outdoors, whatever it may be, going on a hiking trip, whatnot. Because for me, again, that philosophy goes back to like where I'm super aligned of, that's how I got out of my bad mental health spouts. This is what helps me. This is what can help other people, is just getting outdoors, right? And so Sunny Day is a coffee brand, but it's also just an outdoor brand, and an ethos and a way of living more analog and disconnecting and getting people more outdoors, which I believe is something I carry very close to my heart.
You might not have an answer for this. But do you think you could explain why getting outdoors helps people?
Yeah, I think your environment has a lot to, like, your environment affects a lot of how you feel. And there's probably something deep inside us that's just like more relaxed in a more natural state of like the outdoors, right? But I would also say just the idea of like being totally immersed in nature and being away from the phones and the constant stimulation that calms you down and calms your anxiety or whatnot. You know, when you wake up on a campsite, you're not thinking about all the things that are back at home, like you kind of escape. And because of that, and I'd also think like a lot of times when you're outdoors, you're with other people or potentially bringing others, unless you're doing a solo trip. And it's like kind of an adventure. So you have this shared sense of you're going somewhere together with people, which I think is important. But I'd say that it's just like no stimulation. You kind of able to just breathe and, you know, out of sight, out of mind. Maybe for a lot of things that have been stressing you out, you can kind of like, you know.
I think environment, I don't even think it's just that. I think a lot about the idea of environment when meeting people. There's always outliers,
Yeah.
but think about what are the odds someone like me or you meets a best friend here? Well, what are the odds someone like me or you meets a best friend in the club?
Yeah.
And it's like, when I was at San Diego State and I was in a frat and I knew it wasn't me, I just felt, like I'm putting myself at a disadvantage by spending so much time in these environments. And it's almost been, I mean, it has been truth in my life that by changing my environment, I change my whole experience. I change the quality of my friends. I change the quality of my friends, the quality of my conversations. And invested, like going to places like this, even when I have almost no money, it's just a no-brainer because of the environment. I know how like fruitful it is.
Soul wealth.
So well,